everybody, Ninjo X here to give you another new Enlightened vlog. See if I can't stumble over my words a little bit. You know, whenever I'm playing games, I generally think of two things, two reasons why I play those games. Artistry and depth. And while artistry is pretty simple to explain, if something is artistic, if it looks outwardly beautiful or invokes curiosity or is simply well made, it can be considered artistic. But depth is a little bit more complicated, and I can't tell you the number of times, mainly because I don't keep track, that people have suggested that I play a certain game and I say, I can't do that because it's not deep enough. And then they retort with something like, well, it's really strategic. That's where its depth is. Strategy isn't depth. Story isn't depth. Visuals aren't depth. Depth, by its very namesake, is deeper than that. So what is depth then? To me, depth is several things, and it's one of the hardest things to explain, but considering I talk about it so often on the show, I feel like I owe you guys as best of an explanation as I can give. Depth is curiosity. It's when something is more than just the sum of its parts. Yes, the ocean is water and flesh and bone and sand and salt. But all those things together make it the ocean, which is more valuable than any of those individual things. And it's so important to me to have depth in the games that I play. Tiny Tank did not have much depth at all. It didn't. It was a very, very shallow game. And it's one of the biggest reasons I think I wasn't enjoying it, because I can play a game that's not a very good game and still enjoy myself if there was some decent effort put behind it, if it has some depth in the story. Or in the gameplay. See, that's just it. Just because a game doesn't have a story at all doesn't mean there's no depth. It can still invoke curiosity, take your mind to new horizons, new amazing places. And even realistic games can do this. But it's a lot harder. I will say that right now. The realistic games, the games that pride themselves on, oh, you can do anything you want because it's realistic, normally are the least deep games. Normally. There are exceptions, but they're very few and very, very far between. I don't play a lot of M for mature rated games either, because normally those games, even though they're for a mature audience, really all they're doing is pandering ultra-violence or pandering over-sexuality to people to try and get their attention when they know the gameplay, the depth, and the artistry will not. Wow, this got serious really fast. But I feel like I owe it to you guys to explain what I see as depth. There can be depth of gameplay, as I've already discussed. There can be depth of story, where the story was really evokes strong emotions, can make you sad and happy and angry. Because you know what? If you're playing a video game and all you're doing is having fun, it might be a waste of time. And that's a harsh thing for me to say because, as I've said before, there's nothing worse than a waste of time. Time is our most valuable, most irredeemable resource. Anyways, let's talk about some games that I like and some ways that they're deep. Let's start off with the game we're playing right now with Ratchet and Clank. Ratchet and Clank is deep in the terms of its characters. Ratchet is very believable. Clank is very believable. And both are very relatable. Quark, who... Yeah, we've definitely met Quark at this point. I was just checking my calendar really quick over there on the wall to make sure that when this vlog goes out that would have been a thing, and it is. Quark is a very deep, very believable character. He's the fallen hero. He's the social epitome of perfection on the outside, and people gawk and admire him, unknowing of just how dark he really is. Even the B-list characters, the Helgas, the Skid McMarks, are very believable creatures. And that's where Ratchet and Clank gets its depth. And as the series progresses, Ratchet and Clank grow up. Even Quark grows up a little bit. Let's take a look at Pokemon. Where is it deep? Pokemon is deep as a franchise, but the main game, each game is deep for a different thing. The first Pokemon is deep for its gameplay. New, unusual, original gameplay that rocked the world of what we thought was possible with RPGs at the time. I mean, the D&D, Dungeons & Dragons formula for RPGs at the time that Pokemon was released was what people thought was the most complex way to do an RPG. Final Fantasy? As much as it gets praised, especially the early Final Fantasies, are very, very basic. Very basic. Choose a job class. Level up to get that special job class's abilities. Switch job to another class. Continue to level up and gain job abilities needed to pass certain battles. Yeah. Confession for me, guys, really quick. Try not to judge me too harshly. I don't care for Squaresoft. I don't care for Enix. I don't care for Square Enix. I'm sure there are a couple of good Final Fantasy games that I haven't played yet, but so far, every single Square game that I've played, or Square Enix game that I've played, has been at least a partial letdown. Where they don't seem to scale very well, and it seems to be insistent that you grind, not just to play well, but to finish the game at all. And personally, I don't like to play games like that, not even RPGs. Yes, I will grind a little bit to get past a certain challenge, but I don't want to grind every single time I go to a new area. To me, that's not how I have fun playing games. That seems like a waste of time. Especially if the game was scaled properly, you would level up to at least close to the level you need to just by playing the game. You learn by doing, not by learning. Anyways, back to depth. Let's talk about my favorite game of all time, Banjo-Kazooie. Let's talk about the depth that it has. Banjo-Kazooie is depth deep in its artistry. Its levels are incredibly well crafted. Each one feels like a new world or a new location, completely foreign to the others. There's no repeat levels in Banjo-Kazooie, unlike games like Mario 64 and others. But that's one of the things that Rareware's always been pretty on the ball about. But when they broke into 3D, they shattered the mold. If you were to strip all of the visual and audio artistry away from the levels in Banjo-Kazooie, each level would feel pretty similar. But because of that visualization, we have so much more for each individual level. Each one has a feel. You really feel like you're in an industrial, devastated industrial ruin when you're in the Rusty Bucket Bay. When you're in Treasure Trove Cove, you really feel like you're on a pirate's cove. When you're in Bubble Gloop Swamp, you really feel like you're in a stinking, festering marsh. And it's just great. But that's only the beginning. Banjo-Kazooie is my favorite game because of all the games I've played, it might have the most depth. The artistry is spot on, and the depth is incredible. Why is the depth incredible? Hints. Secrets. A trail of Reese's peanut butter cups that lead, Reese's Pieces that lead to the truth of what Banjo-Kazooie was and what it could have been. And what it may still become. Of course, that was before Microsoft assimilated Rareware, but we'll see what comes of that. All we can do is hope. And that's just the beginning. There's a reason I didn't start playing. I'm not doing Banjo-Kazooie this first season. Just spoiler alert, I'm not doing it this first season. I'm probably not going to do it the second season, and I might not even do it the third season of this channel. Because I have so much depth to uncover. If you thought Twilight Princess was crazy, you'd be right. But compared to Banjo-Kazooie, Twilight Princess might as well be... Let me think of a good example. I don't want to insult Twilight Princess because it was a very deep game. Twilight Princess is to Banjo-Kazooie as the original Final Fantasy is to Final Fantasy VII. That is a good example, I think. It's like the first Final Fantasy, yeah, there's some depth, there's some good exploration. The conveyance is pretty awful, but it's pretty awful in all of the Final Fantasy games that I've played, at least. But then you get to 7. And I actually, again, don't crucify me. That might have been offensive, but I'm a Christian too, so I think I'd be offended if I said it, but I have never played Final Fantasy VII. Nobody out there has played every game out there. I've heard a lot about Final Fantasy VII. I watched all of Gerard's Final Fantasy VII month, so I have a pretty good idea of how the game takes place. And I know that it is beloved. But I just haven't gotten a hold of it. It's hard to play every game you want to play whenever you don't have any money. And what little money I had, this channel is siphoning from me. But I'm not going to complain because I love running this channel. Even though there's only 28 of you, at least as of this recording, I absolutely love every single one of you that watches my videos, which is about 6 or 7 actually. At least if near the end of Twilight Princess is any indication. But, so what is depth? Depth is what I play for. Depth is the idea that the sum of the parts do not equal the whole. Depth is the ability to be inspired and enlightened by something. If you see something that's shallow, I'll use a person for example, because a shallow person is a terrible, terrible waste of a person. If you see somebody who is a shallow person, who is very obviously shallow, who you meet and talk to that is shallow, you might look at them and say, they put a lot of effort into their outward beauty, but they are not very deep. If I stepped in a puddle of that person, I think my heels might still be dry. The same is true for video games. There are video games like Twilight Princess, like Pokemon Blue, like, here's a Steam title, because I kind of said that I kind of ragged on Steam, that is really deep. The Stanley Parable. every medium of art, for every outlet, there will be those that abuse it. There will be shallow garbage games just meant to eat up some of your time, or to use violence, gore, over-sexualization, nastiness to distract you from the fact that the games are about as deep as a 1-inch puddle of polluted tap water. But then there are the other ones. There are the true works of art. The beautiful, deep, moving games. The ones that are fun, that you just want to keep on playing, but you don't just want to keep on playing them because, yay, explosions! Instead, you want to keep on playing them because you want to see how it ends. You want to see Mario get to the princess. You want to see if you can beat Tick-Tock Clock. You want to see what happens whenever you finally rescue Tooty from Gruntilda. You want to see if K. Rool will learn the error of his ways. You want to see all this. You want to experience it because it's a world that you're in. You want to see if you can defeat the champion. You want to see what friends you'll make along the way in Pokemon. The want. If a game makes you need to know more, that doesn't necessarily make it deep. But if a game is greater than the sum of its parts, that is what depth is. And there are few things more beautiful than that. Well, I hope you guys enjoy this vlog. Hope you like, subscribe if you really enjoy it. Leave a comment below. I'd love to start a conversation with you guys. But unfortunately for now, I think I'm gonna have to go. Until next time, stay enlightened.